Hi, welcome to another edition of Planetary Calendars for February, here with our publisher Carol Cherry, and I'm one of the authors, Lonnie D. Meekus, and I wanted to read something that the other author started off the forecast with for February this year, because I thought it was fun, and it's nice to have his thoughts at the beginning of each month on the calendar. It says the first part of the month, Mars and Venus are hand in hand in Pisces, so work on relationships and romance. With Venus exalted, she holds the upper hand, so when she wants to go dancing, put on your dancing shoes. When they move into Aries on the 19th and 20th, Mars enters his ruling sign, so it's time for action movies and tractor pulls with Venus tagging along. Venus is weak in Aries, but strengthened by Mars at her side, so she's one of the guys who dresses nicer and smells better. He has a way with words.
Yes, he definitely does. He definitely does. Yeah, the February 2015 starts with the moon in Cancer, the homey feeling there, and we have Groundhog Day on the 2nd, and then the full moon on the 3rd. So that sounds like peak energy there to start off the month and to get things moving.
And I know I'm always one that's rooting for Punxsutawney Phil not to see his shadow and have an early spring, right?
Mm-hmm. Doesn't mean that much to us out here.
Well, you know, you can take the girl out of Pennsylvania, but you can't take Pennsylvania out of the girl.
That's true.
And we always watch the movie Groundhog Day. So if you want to smile and a feel-good movie, that's the one to watch on Groundhog Day.
There you go. That's something that both Venus and Mars can agree on, huh?
Yep.
On Friday, the 6th, is a box day, but that is also the day when Jupiter is at closest approach. So that big giant star you're seeing in the sky as the month begins, that is Jupiter. So you want to take a moment and have a look for that.
Because it's in opposition to the sun. So in the middle of the night, after the sun is all set, it will be it'll be the brightest blue star that you see. Of course, it's not a star, but it will be very evident at close approach.
And it won't be that blue, but a little bit maybe.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The 6th is a box day, and that is not a very good day to start new things. What it is a good day to finish up old things. So if you have something new that you want to do, wait until the next week or do it earlier in the week, because the 6th is not the day to start new things.
Well, luckily, that's that's the only black box day in the whole month.
Mm-hmm. That's true. And the only circle day that we have is the 21st, which is a Saturday. The 25th could almost be a circle day, but it doesn't exactly qualify. But it's a great time to get people together and exchange information.
Well, on the 25th,
that's what I mean. Mm-hmm.
We've got that sun square moon. So anytime the sun and the moon are at odds like that, we don't make a white circle day. There you go.
As that's the self and the emotions sort of crashing into each other at a blind intersection.
I know you said that's right. They're coming in approaching the same point, but from totally 90 degrees apart. Yeah. And so that is a potential for miscommunication. And if there's one thing you want to communicate solidly is between your ego and your emotions.
Yes.
So when either one of them gets a little bit out of kilter or too far afield from the other one, anything can happen.
It's true. It's true. So the big news this month is going to be Mercury going direct in Aquarius on the 11th. That's going to be wonderful. People are going to be very happy to see Mercury going retrograde. But the third quarter moon again has that sun moon square, and that last week of the moon can be very low energy, which doesn't really bode well for an energetic and exciting Valentine's Day. But
maybe a nice quiet romantic one.
Nice cozy romantic one. It's nice to have Valentine's on a Saturday this year. That's always nice when it's on the weekend.
I did want to mention about that Mercury going direct. We're all going to breathe a sigh of relief. But remember that you're not out of the woods yet. Mm-hmm. We've got the shadow of the Mercury. So what that means is that Mercury has now started to move forward when it goes direct, but not until it gets back to the degree it was when it first went retrograde are we really clear of the effects of the Mercury retrograde.
Exactly.
They really start things start to move forward and things start to progress. But it's still a period of time where you want to tie up those loose ends. So you've got another couple of weeks until, depending on how fast Mercury's moving, for Mercury to get back to the degree where it went retrograde.
Yeah, for some of us seem to feel that the shadow time when Mercury is retracing ground that he has just covered, you know, it's sort of a do-over time. You know, you're really reviewing what's been going on. And that's the whole point of the entire Mercury retrograde, is to review what's gone on since the last time it went retrograde. It happens 3 times a year, every 3 months. We have 3 weeks. 333 for Miss Mercury.
Well, and Mercury is all about not just the mind, but the hands sort of doing what the mind wants,
skills,
is telling it to do. And so a lot of times Mercury like sort of runs on ahead and doesn't realize that, you know, mom and sister have walking behind have turned a corner and they're way up there. So it's a good time to kind of put on the brakes and figure out the next step.
Exactly, and examine. You know, the unexamined life is not worth living, they say. You know, this is an excellent time for us to review, make any course corrections, you know, pick up things that we lost by the wayside. You know, when Mercury's retrograde, communication issues can really be an issue. You know, vehicles can be a problem. You know, people aren't calling you back. Well, they never got the message, you know. I mean, so it's important to go back and make sure that, you know, you've gotten to do everything that you wanted to do is essentially it.
And remember, Mercury is related to travel just as Jupiter is, but in a slightly different way. Jupiter is long distance travel. Mercury rules short distance travel, but car rides, and that's why all these things that have to do with your cars and vehicles also sort of become issues during Mercury retrograde. You know, I know you like to point out that people's turn signals go out, or they,
it's funny you should say that, because I was just thinking
brake
that,
lights.
That happens mostly when Mercury goes retrograde in Libra, which we're going to have later on this year also.
Well, because there's 2 of them.
That's what I know. And that's what you can see, and it's, you know, I mean, it's very, very interesting. But yeah, that's very true. So if you've got a turn signal out or a headlight out, you know, you definitely want to take care of that, because you get stopped for that sort of thing, and who needs that?
And if you have travel plans, check, double check, check again, because the details just get blown by the wayside while Mercury is retrograde. And as it turns direct on the 11th, remember, when a planet changes sign or direction, it creates turbulence. So it has to calm down a little bit before. So wait a couple days, or make sure that you know what's going on so that you know how much extra effort in checking you need to take.
And be careful driving when Mercury changes signs or directions. And I have found that if you must travel while Mercury is retrograde, prepare for delays. If you bring a book, you won't need it. If you don't bring a book, you will need it. You'll be sorry you didn't. So prepare for delays. But that doesn't always mean that they will happen.
I know one of the worst things that I've ever done in a Mercury retrograde was we had our phone system went down, and we had to replace our phone system. Boy, that kind of poor decision making or
poor timing,
poor control of that decision making lasted the whole relationship for the whole carrier that we had for that phone, and the entire time. It didn't just end when the Mercury retrograde. So, you know, you act in haste, you repent at leisure. So
there you go.
Any way that you can to stretch those decisions until it's not just direct, but out of the shadow.
And it's so tempting to just post on your website, our phones are down, we'll be back in 2 weeks, rather than get that phone system that's going to be the bane of your existence.
I think
for
you're
ages.
right. Yeah, I really do.
Yeah, so again, that's a 3rd quarter moon. Energy can be very low between the 3rd quarter and the new moon, which happens on the following Wednesday, February 18th. But we do have a long weekend. We've got that Valentine's Day weekend on the 14th, but then there's President's Day on Monday. So, of course, banks, businesses, and you know, stuff will be closed then. So
that's a long, extra long,
Isn't that
romantic
nice
Valentine's Day weekend. Thank you.
Yeah, I wish we would have mentioned that on last month's forecast so that you guys could have made reservations.
There you go. But then, of course, we come up to the new moon on the 18th.
It's a big day.
And the Chinese New Year is listed as the following day. Now, just for some mechanics of it, the Chinese New Year is the new moon in Aquarius. However, they always listed on the first full day after that new moon actually happens. So we have the new moon listed for the 18th. Chinese New Year is celebrated on the 19th, and we're going to be going into the year of the wood sheep. The sheep energy is a Cancerian type of energy. You're born in the year of the sheep. So, and wood is very sort of resilient and reliable, and so the wood sheep sounds like it will be a very good year for family and structuring, and it just sounds like a good year. But we always do a complete Chinese New Year forecast that you'll be able to find on planetarycalendars.com. You'll be able to find it on spaceandtime.com, and we'll be airing another episode for that as well.
Right. Now, also on the 18th, we have Ash Wednesday. So Lent begins on February 18th, but we also have an odd notation on that day.
Well,
on the 18th, we have a void of course moon for about 30 seconds.
Yeah, so we surrounded that by asterisks because we figured that people were going to see this calendar and they'd be calling or emailing saying there's a mistake on the calendar. You know, the void of course moon starts at the same time that it ends, but it isn't a full minute long. And in my opinion, that's the way void of course should be.
That would be nice.
Because a void of course moon is a time when the moon has already visited the last planet of its circuit before it goes into the next sign. So it's kind of a wanderer. It doesn't know what to do with itself. It just doesn't have any destination or any goal, or, you know, it can't go back and visit these other, it doesn't have time to go do anything. So there's a lot to be said for the fact that during a void of course moon is not the right time to sign a contract or start something new. Sometimes a void of course is a few minutes, a few hours, it could be a few days. But void of course is a concept that even if people don't study a lot of astrology, they like to pick up on Mercury retrograde and void of course moon.
Yeah, void of course, everything has void of course times, not just the moon.
Sure.
And when Mercury has finished making aspects in the sign that it is in, and that's the case for the rest of the time that it's there, you know, then it is considered to be void of course also. But the moon is particularly of interest because it's emotional. I mean, the moon governs our emotions, and so it's a very easy time to, I don't know what I want to do. What do you want to do? You know, kind of a feeling, because you sort of feel directionless. There's not really anything going to.
And it's the only one of the lights that goes void of course, because the sun, of course, does not go void of course. And so there is, you know, the component that this is one of the strong influences in our life that really doesn't know where to go. And when you're emotionally sort of up in the air, it's undoing, it's unwinding. You don't like that feeling. So that's why void of course is so important.
So with that Ash Wednesday on the 18th, the very next day, like we said, we have the Chinese New Year, and we have Mars going into Aries, and then the next day Venus going into Aries, as Lonnie said at the beginning of the program. So the 21st,
tractor poles
have them conjunct. Venus and Mars conjunct on that beautiful white circle day with, once again, Uranus doubly well aspected. That might be a great day to do something new. You know, if you don't usually go to tractor pulls, you might want to give it a try. You know, it should be great for romance too. I mean, when Venus and Mars are so nicely conjunct. But in Aries, you want to be on the same page, because each of those planets is going to want to do their own thing. So if their own thing is the same thing, then great. Otherwise, maybe Venus goes to a tea party and Mars goes to a tractor pull.
Not when they're conjunct.
No,
you know, I love the Aries energy. It's you know, it's the perennial newborn. It's like, oh wow, there's this. Oh wow, there's that. Oh, let's start this. And the Aries energy may not be great at finishing something. So if you're doing something enjoyable, you know, that's a better way to use that Aries energy. But I love that sort of fresh, new approach that Aries often brings to the world and their new experiences. And you're right, with that doubly well aspected Uranus aspecting the moon in Aries very well, It might be something that you never would have thought of, something eccentric or something just innovative.
Yeah, and Mercury also well aspected that day, and Jupiter also well aspected today. So it's luck and communications and things. I mean, it sounds wonderful. Like
Definitely
a really,
sounds
really
like a
great
drive
day.
is involved there between Mercury and Jupiter, both being
Maybe.
travel planets.
Maybe, or talking about something really new, something that you've been wanting to talk about that you haven't, had the courage to bring up. That might be a very good day to do that. And then
there's George Washington's birthday,
Yeah.
which falls on the weekend, so that is President's Day was the 16th from before.
Right. And then we've got the first quarter moon starting on the 25th. Once the new moon happens on the 18th, energy really starts to build, and people have their get up and go back, and energy on projects sort of moves forward again and things, and that's wonderful. So,
Well, the 23rd has a Sun square Saturn. So that could be a little bit of a we didn't make it a black box day, but I just want people to be aware of that because, the Sun is not kind of in sync with the dictates of Saturn. So you want to be a little bit careful about starting anything, especially depending on what kind of a topic is involved in that kind of starting.
Right. When Saturn is a focus for the astrology on a day or a time period, responsible action is the best way to go. I recently said that to a friend, and they said, "Oh, responsible action is always the best way to go, don't you think?" I said, "Yeah, but it's so easy to, I don't want to go to work today. Maybe I'll just call out, or one more piece of cake won't be a problem." It's when you see Saturn aspected on the calendar, they're the days that you just want to do the right thing.
Well, man does not live by work alone.
That's true.
And so if you really want to live your life in sync with the planets, you're going to look for that day that Venus says, "Let's go to the beach," or, "I need to pay attention." Venus in Virgo might say, "Let's pay more attention to my health," or instead of, I don't have to be out there signing contracts or, building houses or, whatever it is that might tie you into a structure. And even if it is just taking a departure from your routine schedule, to be able to come back to look at things with new eyes.
Right.
So,
and at Planetary Calendars, we're trying to help you get as much information out of the stars as possible. And that's why we have an awful lot of information about what the different planets represent,
their
what are
rulership,
favorable
what's
things to
appropriate.
do when a planet is above the line or below the line or above the numeral or below the numeral, so that you're able to, see for yourself, what's good for you and focus appropriately, because we can't be there every day with you.
It's even nice to look at these things after the fact and say, "Oh wow, that really explains my experience of that day because my ruling planet is Mercury and it was below the number, and so that means it wasn't a bad aspect with the moon, so I was emotionally just kind of not."
And the moon was in Cancer or something,
Exactly.
so everybody was a little
all
emotional.
I could think about was my mother nagging me or something.
Exactly.
It really is very clear in hindsight, and better hindsight than no sight. It's nice to be able to plan ahead, but if you didn't get a chance to do that, or if you don't understand how to interpret the planets well enough, you actually learn by looking back.
Right.
So,
well, and it's also good, we apply the energy to ourselves, but applying the energy to our kids or our friends or our coworkers. Boy, Bobby wasn't trying to be a jerk. It wasn't an especially emotional day that day, or what have you, and be able to help you see into and have insight into the people that you're dealing with as well. Because we don't live on an island.
That's a great point, because a lot of times we'll look at a natal chart and we'll say they're just not wired like you. They're not doing it to tick you off. They run on a different planet. We look at a chart, and some people run on their Mercury,
right? And
so they burn up that Mercury energy because that's the strongest planet in their chart. Other people, maybe athletes or something, maybe they run on their Jupiter. You know, maybe an artist, really their planet is ruled by their Venus. So
And
it gives you very interesting insights.
That could be so hard to understand. A friend of mine recently said, I'm a Pisces, and so that means that 4 plus 5 is an emotional question for me. I'm a Virgo with a Capricorn moon. There is absolutely no emotion linked to that statement at all. And so being able to understand how very differently some of us are wired, you know, is really an important thing if we want to maintain these relationships. I mean, we get to pick who we live with maybe, but we don't get to pick our kids. They come as they come. You know, we don't get to pick our boss and our coworkers. You know, we really have to use this information to make all areas of our life a little more understandable.
Well, and do you want to pick everybody to be just like you, or do you rather want to be able to learn from or benefit from the differences or a different point of view? I mean, that square might be a challenging aspect, but ultimately, you know, it's one of those great learning experiences. You know, you go through life thinking, oh, yes, this is the way this is. And here comes a square and says, oh, but did you ever think about it this way? And now you've got a whole different.
And who are those people? You know, some people want that square at work or with their friends, but not with the people that are in their house, you know, and other people are opposite. You know, they love the fact that somebody in their home has got a new idea that makes them think differently all the time. And so it really is important to apply the information directly to you personally. And that's why we do this every year.
I call those squares teachers.
There you go.
They are teachers.
Squares very often are teachers. Yes, it's true.
That is right. So we had Mercury going direct, and we have Jupiter going, is already retrograde. So we have that kind of
Jupiter is still retrograde.
Yep.
And Saturn is still in Sagittarius for now.
Exactly, you've got this until it's leading up to be retrograding all the way back into Scorpio for a time in June 14th.
Right, right. I'm looking at this financial alert, beware the September eclipse. Read that forecast now. When Ralph says, read September and February, you do it. I know I'm going to.
There you go. Well, let's look and see what he has to say.
Well, the September eclipse is happening on my birthday anyway, so I'm already a little scared.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, I really think that this year, I mean, in these first couple of months, and it's so often the case we see it in, you know, we got winter, you know, that it's internal. It's time to be ourselves inside, in our homes, in our heads, and doing what we're supposed to be doing for our health and to get the new year ready and things like that. It's an exciting time. I have a lot of high hopes for this year.
Well, I think January starts out a little bit kind of push me, pull you, a little
it needs to
smash bang, which is good. I think that in February we start to scale back a little bit from that, and then Mercury goes direct, and then we can kind of move forward out of the chaos that maybe was the whole 2014, and then sort of crescendoed in the activity of January. And then I like the idea that Mars and Venus for a time are going to be on the same page, which really bodes well for relationships, not just personal relationships, but also business relationships or with your own self in terms of creating, you know, what is our life except finding balance? You know, so Mars is externalized energy, Venus is internalized energy. How do you find the balance between the two? So if they have some commonality to begin with, it's really kind of a nice reset. I find it interesting, and it's one of the reasons that we do the Chinese New Year forecast rather than doing a forecast for January 1st, because it's a time of year where all the energy is kind of contracted into the earth, and then after the Chinese New Year, it starts to expand out again. And so it's more natural for that to be an indicator of a time period year to year than the arbitrary date that was chosen to start our calendar year. So I look more as January being sort of the ending of 2014 and the beginning of the coming year, or 2015 in this case, is really the Chinese New Year.
Well, and it'll be interesting to see how these energies play out politically. I mean, certainly in 2014, politics and issues have really seemed to be coming to the fore and coming to a head in some cases.
Well, and Saturn and Scorpio, they were downright vile and nasty at times. So I think that, you know, with Saturn in Sagittarius, we hopefully have a little bit more optimistic. I mean, if Sagittarius is the rule of sport, the ruler of sports, you know, maybe when somebody throws the ball, somebody else will throw the ball back. I mean, that's kind of the goal, you know?
Right. Well,
so
it made me think when you said balance, important thing of life, you know, and with a two-party system as we have here, you know, you'd think that balance would be a focus, but too often times that it doesn't really feel that way.
Right, it's polarizing.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So
well, wouldn't that be nice if we could look at the calendar and say, oh, you know, everybody's going to play nice this year, and it'll just be.
Certainly, it's going to be different, and I agree with you. It really is adjusting our minds, ourselves, our lives, our routines, our thinking, our rituals, all of those things to sort of get over and assimilate, you know, what's been going on in the last 2 years, you know, 2.5 really, because that's Saturn and Scorpio. There's many people who've been saying 2-3 years that they've been struggling. Things have been very heavy and oppressive and difficult
Life
to
and
manage.
death, really.
Exactly.
Scorpio makes you look at things you don't really want to look at, you know, so at least now.
And it makes you have to.
You've gotten out of therapy and you can actually do something with it.
Yeah. Well, and we'll see what happens when it retrogrades over the later on in the year. But I think that things are going to be a lot easier.
So we hope you enjoyed this February. Let us know if it plays out the way you thought based on listening to our show, and you can always visit us on Facebook.
We'd love to hear from you. Yeah.
Or planetarycalendars.com or spaceandtime.com. I'm Lonnie D. Mikas.
I'm Carol Sherry.
Bye.
Bye.